This is ridiculous. All right, Chandler, are you ready?
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We are the Topsail High School Jazz Band. All right, thank you all for coming out tonight. The first piece we performed was Zoot Suit Riot. I'd like to introduce the rhythm section. First up, we have Bryce Squires on piano. We have Ewan Courtwright on vibes. Dylan Bennett on drum set. Mason Crawford and Zach Weaver on guitar. Tristan Santero and Reed Nelson on the bass back there. Our next piece is Moanin' by Charles Mingus, featuring our Barry sax specialist, Bryson. Sorry, Braden takes it. All right, one of them.
Same difference. Take it away. Braden.
All right, so time to introduce the trumpet section. We got Carlos Valencia, our first trumpet back. Wyatt Rogers on second. Dylan Richards on third. Michael Girolami on fourth. And Lawson Gardner on fifth. Our next piece is a New Orleans parade-style piece called the Mudbug Strut. All right, our next piece is When I Fall in Love, featuring our awesome vocal soloist, Laura Mullen. All right, it is time to introduce the trombone section. Gabrielle Ball on lead. Jack Pappy on second. Michael Morris on third. And hold on bass down there is Riley Gobble. Our next piece is 25 or 6 to 4 from Chicago, featuring another vocal soloist and trumpet player, Dylan Richards, and various instrumentalists throughout. rhythm solos, remember, is Victor, then Carlos, then Dylan, then Zach. Right. Yeah, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. All right, our next piece, gonna go to Funky Town with Neon Green. Our final vocal feature this evening is Fever. So for a final time, welcome Laura back to the stage.
fever started on.
All right, so before we get to our final piece, I want to take a moment to recognize the incredible group of students on stage. Let's give them another round of applause. So these folks wake up every Tuesday and Thursday, an hour and a half early. Well, they get to school an hour and a half early before school starts at 7 a.m. That's some serious commitment and dedication, even by their teacher, to get there that early. But they get there that early, and it just shows how much they love jazz and how much they like doing this. So one more round of applause for them. And parents, I want to give you guys a big thank you, because you guys, your support, instruments, getting them to school at 7 a.m., you guys have to wake up too, or maybe wake them up to get to school. So thank you for all of that. That makes all of this possible, so thank you. A few special shout-outs, Topsail High School Administration. I know Dr. Breedlove's over there. Thank you, Dr. Breedlove, for all your support. I see Miss Smith over there. Miss Smith is there. Hi, Miss Smith. That's Trash Director, in case you don't know. Matt Squires for pulling the band trailer and all he's doing. Thank you. Crystal Squires for opening up the band room on days when I was out on paternity leave, so thank you, Ms. Squires. And Chandler Edwards for running rehearsal when I was gone, and sound and all the things. Thank you, Chandler. Seniors, stand. This is exciting and scary for me. There's a lot of seniors here that are doing some awesome things, so congrats, seniors. I'm gonna miss you guys next year. And finally, a big thank you to Shaka for hosting us in this awesome venue. We love performing here. If you haven't already, go get some tacos, especially if you love some jazz. Maybe even if you don't, go get some tacos, because we make a little bit of money back for them, which goes back into jazz bands. So again, thank you, Shaka. Go get some tacos before you leave. Finally, let's introduce the saxophone section / clarinet. Kaylee Hurst on clarinet. Victor Sterling on lead alto. And soprano. Gage Andrews Gullickson on second alto. Luke Graziano on tenor. And Braden Squires on bass. For our final selection, we're going to take you back to NOLA one more time with Canal Street Commotion. Thanks for coming out. Go get some tacos. Next week, our next performance is at Oval and Ale at 6 p.m. See you there.